This video will help you navigate to relevant documents from the Universal Periodic Review. We'll be starting with two URLs to navigate to the documents we're looking for, and you should see those URLs up on the screen. The first URL will take you to this web page, or if you don't want to copy down the URL, you can simply do a search with your favorite search engine for Universal Periodic Review, and you should come to this web page. The link we're looking for over on the left is documentation by country, and this link will take you to a list of all of the United Nations member states, and you can scroll through this to find the country you are interested in. We will take as an example the Philippines. So we'll scroll down to find the Philippines, click the link, and this link takes us to all the relevant information for the Universal Periodic Reviews of the Philippines. And the Philippines has been through 3 cycles of the Universal Periodic Review. The page lists each cycle and lists them in reverse chronological order. In other words, from most recent to least recent. So if you scroll through here, we have the 3rd cycle, the 2nd cycle, and the 1st cycle. You'll see also they helpfully list the date of consideration. That's the date of the actual interactive dialogue for each of the 3 reviews. You'll see here there are 2 main documents that we'll be looking for, and they are listed under the outcome of the review. So the first document that you want to look for is the report of the working group. That's listed here under outcome of the review, and you can select whichever UN language you prefer to use, and then click E for English if that's what you're looking for, and it will take you to the report of the working group. The report of the working group contains a lot of relevant information, interesting information from the interactive dialogue itself. First, if you didn't catch it from the main page, you can find typically in the first paragraph the date of the interactive dialogue. So here it says the review of the Philippines was held on the 8th of May, 2017. Other relevant information includes the presentation by the state under review. In this summary of the presentation by the government of the Philippines, in this case, the government will oftentimes talk about its achievements, its challenges, what it's accomplished over the preceding 5 years with respect to human rights. So you may, in reading through that, find some relevant information the government shared during that interactive dialogue. Also, the interactive dialogue after the government makes its presentation, then different delegations can make their own statements and make recommendations. And oftentimes the state under review will interject midway through or at some point during those statements with its own commentary. So here you'll see the intervention started with Vietnam, proceeding alphabetically. And at some point during this, I see, looking at paragraph 62, this is where the delegation retakes the floor and offers some responses. So in paragraph 62, the delegation of the Philippines offered some responses to issues relating to human rights defenders, the Commission on Human Rights, etc. So there's a little interlude here where there's more information about the government's official positions as stated during the interactive dialogue. Then it goes back to further interventions by additional countries, and then there's more back and forth as it goes. So that can be relevant if you're trying to track down what a country's position is with respect to a particular issue. You can find out whether they said anything in particular during that interactive dialogue without having to go back and listen to the 3.5-hour recording of the proceedings. The next section of the document is the conclusions or recommendations, and these are all of the recommendations that were issued to the government of the Philippines in this case during that interactive dialogue. And you'll see at the top of paragraph 133, it says, these recommendations will be examined by the Philippines, which will provide responses in due time. So at this point, when this document was published, the government of the Philippines had not responded to these recommendations. These are just the outstanding recommendations that were made. They're typically listed clumped by theme. Typically, the first theme has to do with ratification of human rights treaties and optional protocols. And then there are other topics sort of clustered together. So if you do a Control-F search for the topic you're looking for, you generally will find similar recommendations clustered together. toward the end, it's possible that the government under review, and I don't think this is the case with the Philippines, but sometimes the government under review will make a decision right away about some recommendations, in which case there might be additional paragraphs saying the government accepts these recommendations or notes these recommendations. But in this case, the government of the Philippines didn't respond right away, which is fine. That's what most governments do. So that's the report of the working group and what you can find there. The next document you want to look for is the actual formal responses to those recommendations, and that's in a document called the Addendum. So if we look again at the outcome of the review, we have the Addendum, and again, it's available in English, so you can click that there. Again, you have to click through, and this is the formal response by the government of the Philippines to each of those recommendations. So if you scroll through this document, you'll see the government offers some explanations to those recommendations. So here it just lists the recommendations number by number. These are the recommendations that enjoy the support of the government of the Philippines, but also up above there's some explanation for which recommendations were noted, why it didn't accept certain recommendations as well. Each document is a little bit different depending on the country and how it wants to present it, but you may find some tidbits of explanations within this addendum document in addition to the sort of succinct responses to the recommendations as accepted or noted as well. So that addendum can also be a very useful document for tracking a government's position on human rights issues at a particular moment in time. So those two documents are most relevant for the Universal Periodic Review. Another document that you may want to find is a video of what happened during the adoption of the outcome of the review. This is usually a half-hour session, sometimes it's even shorter. Civil society organizations get a chance to speak, and the government will oftentimes make a brief presentation. So you can click the related webcast archives to navigate to the relevant videos. And here you see the working group of the Universal Periodic Review, the review of the state concerned, that's the 3.5-hour session. Then you have the adoption of the report of the working group. That's again early on, just formalizing the text of those recommendations to make sure they're recorded correctly. And then what you're looking for now is the Human Rights Council plenary, the consideration and adoption of the outcome in the Human Rights Council plenary. So if you click through to that, it will take you to the United Nations Web TV archives. And here you'll find, in this case, a longer session, about 1 hour, of adopting the outcome of the report of the Philippines. And if you want to find out what the Philippines said during this review, you can click on the links here. Here you see the ambassador and permanent representative of the Philippines to the United Nations offices in Geneva presenting additional information. That would be a useful segment to view. Then you'll see other countries intervene. There's probably not a need to take a look at those, but you do want to see if there are any comments by the government that would give you additional insights into the government's position on a particular issue. And here at the end, you also see the ambassador makes another statement at chapter 27. So you don't have to watch the entire thing, just click through to the relevant sections that where the government is speaking to see if they tip their hand to any further positions with respect to the issues you're researching. So that should give you what you need from this main web page, which is the Universal Periodic Review webpage. Again, you'd go to documentation by country, select your country, and then you'll find the relevant outcome documents for the Universal Periodic Review. We care not only what recommendations a country received and how it decided to act on them, to accept them or note them, but we may also want to know how a country took action during the Universal Periodic Reviews of other countries. In other words, when it had the chance to make recommendations, what recommendations did it make? And there's a great database that you can use to get that information. That's at the second link. That's the uprinfo.org database. So if you start at the UPR Info main page, it will take you here. Then you'll find Just trying to get you to the main page so you can see where you'll be starting. So this is the UPR Info main web page. UPR Info is a non-governmental organization based in Geneva that, as the name suggests, focuses exclusively on the Universal Periodic Review. From that main page, you can click through to the database and linked in the upper right-hand corner. And when you click that link, you will come to the database. And we want to see, for example, in the case of the Philippines, whether the Philippines has ever made recommendations about a particular issue. So we're going to click recommendations in the top left corner. And then what we'll do is over on the right-hand side, we're going to narrow our search. So we're going to search for any cycle. And then we don't care about the state under review. We don't care which government receives the information. We just care about the recommending state. So in the field recommending state, we can enter the Philippines. And then if we just kept the search like that, you'll see that the Philippines has made 1,012 recommendations. That's quite a lot. And we may want to limit our search to a particular topic, such as the death penalty. So then we limit our search to the death penalty, click search, or just let the database do its thing. And here you see that since the advent of the UPR in 2006, the Philippines has made 5 recommendations on the death penalty to other governments. So one recommendation to Papua New Guinea, one to Guatemala, one to Kazakhstan, one to Angola, and one to Peru. And you'll see the dates of each of these as well. So the first recommendation it made was during the first cycle to Peru, to maintain the de facto moratorium on executions that has been enforced since the 1970s. Then we see that on the 7th of February, 2 recommendations, one to Angola, one to Kazakhstan, also in favor of continuing the process of abolishing the death penalty and ratifying, for example, the second optional protocol to the ICCPR. Then the next recommendation was made in 2012 to Guatemala to consider ratifying the second optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And then finally, the most recent recommendation was in 2016 to Papua New Guinea to step up the efforts to abolish the death penalty. So those are the 5 total recommendations the Philippines has made with respect to the death penalty since 2006. You have the dates when those recommendations were made, the countries to whom those recommendations were made. And that may give us a little bit more insight about the level of commitment on the part of the Philippines to abolition of the death penalty and any efforts they would have to try to influence neighboring countries or other countries around the world to follow suit. You want to do a quick look at the substance of the recommendations to make sure that the substance is aligned with what you're looking for. And I'll give you an example of that. If we search for not the Philippines, but Egypt, for example, and we'll keep our search to the death penalty, you'll see that Egypt, as the recommending state, has made 11 recommendations on the death penalty, none of which actually support abolition of the death penalty. So a recommendation in 2014 to Vietnam is to continue using its sovereign right to apply the death penalty as a tool of criminal justice in accordance with the proper safeguards specified under international human rights law. So while it's related to the death penalty, it's not in favor of abolition of the death penalty, and that's an important point. We wouldn't want to identify Egypt as moving in the right direction toward abolishing the death penalty when it's actually using the UPR mechanism to encourage countries to continue their use of the death penalty. So I hope this video has helped you gain a better understanding of how to identify relevant documents related to the Universal Periodic Review for the research that you're doing.